They abandoned me at Miami Airport with no ticket home after I spent $87,500 on their wedding. I'm William Davis, and what happened next would cost my son $8.9 million. Picture this. You've just paid for your son's dream wedding in Florida. Beautiful ceremony. Perfect reception. Then at 10:20 p.m., you're standing alone at gate D23 watching your son and ex-wife board the plane back to Portland without you. "Let's see if he can afford a ticket back," my son Marcus said, loud enough for other passengers to hear. "Maybe if you'd been a real father, you'd have real money for emergencies like this." They left me there, 3,000 miles from home, at 60 years old. But here's what they didn't know. I'd been quietly planning an exit strategy for over 2 years. The Miami condo was already purchased. The legal documents were already prepared. And that $8.9 million trust fund Marcus was counting on? It had a clause he'd never bothered to read. Within weeks of that night, my son would discover that some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt, and I'd gained something I hadn't felt in 30 years, the freedom to live for myself. This story shows what happens when someone pushes the wrong person too far. If you've ever dealt with family members who take your generosity for granted, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because what started as the worst night of my life became the day I finally learned to put myself first. For 30 years, I was the reliable one, the provider, the man who never said no when Marcus needed something. College tuition, $180,000. I paid it. His first apartment deposit in Portland, $8,500. I covered it. When he wanted to start that photography business that lasted 6 months, $25,000 in equipment. My credit card. But here's what I got in return. Lectures about how I was never present, how work came first, how I didn't understand what it meant to be a real father. My ex-wife, Linda, had been feeding him this narrative for 15 years, ever since our divorce when Marcus was 13. "Your father chose his accounting firm over us," she'd tell him. "He's incapable of real love." The thing is, they weren't wrong about one part. I did work constantly, 60-hour weeks, weekends at the office. I built my consulting firm from nothing into something worth $47 million when I sold it in 2022, but they saw none of that sacrifice. They only saw absence. Marcus would call maybe 3 times a year, Christmas, his birthday, and whenever he needed money. "Dad, I'm thinking about proposing to Sarah," he'd said in March. "But I want to do it right. You know, like a real wedding, the kind you never gave Mom." That stung. But I wrote the check anyway. $87,500 for a wedding at some resort in Key Biscayne. Open bar, orchestra, flowers flown in from Ecuador, everything Marcus wanted and more. "This is your chance to show up," Linda had said when I RSVP'd yes. "For once in your life, actually be there for your son." So I flew to Miami, alone, stayed at a Holiday Inn while the wedding party got suites at the resort, watched from the back during the rehearsal dinner while Marcus thanked everyone except me. But the wedding speech, that's when I knew something had fundamentally shifted. Marcus stood up in front of 150 guests, tanned, confident, wearing a $4,000 Armani tuxedo I'd paid for. He raised his champagne glass. "I want to thank everyone who helped make this day possible," he began. "My beautiful bride Sarah, my mother Linda, who taught me what real love looks like." He paused, looked directly at me. "And I want to thank my father for teaching me something equally important. How not to be a man. How not to prioritize your family. I learned more about being a husband by watching what not to do than I ever could from a positive example." The room went silent. A few uncomfortable laughs. Sarah looked mortified. I sat there, hands folded, completely still. Marcus continued. "So, Dad, thanks for showing me that showing up with a checkbook isn't the same as showing up as a father." Polite applause. Like they were clapping for his honesty rather than celebrating me getting publicly humiliated at my own son's wedding. That's when I excused myself, went to the men's room, made a phone call. "Patricia, it's Bill. Yeah, I know it's Sunday. We're moving forward. Tomorrow morning. Patricia Moreno, my estate attorney in Miami. We'd been planning this conversation for 2 years. When I returned to the reception, Linda cornered me by the bar. "How does it feel?" she asked, smiling. "Hearing the truth for once?" "Like freedom," I replied. She laughed. "You'll never change, still pretending you don't care." But I did care. For 30 years I'd cared so much it was killing me. Tonight, though, watching my son destroy me in front of everyone who mattered to him, I realized something profound. I was done caring. The next morning, Marcus and Sarah were flying back to Portland. Linda, too. They'd invited me to share their ride to the airport, then made it clear they expected me to figure out my own ticket home. Budget airline might have something cheap, Marcus had said over breakfast, though you might have to wait a few days. I nodded, finished my coffee, said I'd meet them at the gate. What happened next changed everything. Let me explain what was really at stake here. Because this wasn't just about hurt feelings or family drama. This was about the rest of my life. If I got on that plane back to Portland, if I swallowed this humiliation and went back to my old routine, here's what would happen. Marcus would continue treating me like an ATM with daddy issues. Every few months, another emergency, another investment opportunity, another life event that required my financial participation but not my emotional presence. The pattern was already established. Take my money, mock my contributions, repeat. But here's what they didn't know about the money they were so casually spending. The trust fund I'd established for Marcus in 1995 now held $8.9 million. 29 years of careful investments, reinvested dividends, and additional contributions every time he hit a major milestone. High school graduation, college acceptance, his 21st birthday. That trust was my legacy. My way of ensuring Marcus would never struggle the way I had. But trust funds have rules, legal protections, and mine had a clause that Linda's divorce attorney had missed entirely. Moral turpitude provisions. Willful abandonment of the grantor by the beneficiary shall constitute grounds for immediate revocation. Read Section 7.3 of the Davis Family Trust Agreement. In simple terms, if Marcus abandoned me, I could take it all back. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about respect. What they were actually doing was giving me legal grounds to cut him off completely. But the trust fund was just the beginning. My house in Lake Oswego, the one Marcus grew up in, the one Linda got to keep visiting whenever she wanted to check on Marcus's childhood memories, was worth $1.8 million, free and clear. If I stayed in Portland, it would eventually become Marcus's inheritance. My investment portfolio, built over 30 years of careful saving and smart decisions, held another $12.3 million in stocks, bonds, and real estate investments. My life insurance policy named Marcus as the sole beneficiary, $5 million in coverage. Add it all up, and Marcus was looking at inheriting close to $28 million when I died. Money I'd spent 3 decades accumulating while he spent 3 decades telling me I was a failure as a father. But there was something else at stake. Something more important than money. My self-respect. For 30 years I'd accepted their narrative. The absent father, the workaholic who chose money over family, the man who showed up with a checkbook because he didn't know how to show up with love. Maybe some of that was true. Maybe I had worked too much. Maybe I had missed too many school plays and soccer games and bedtime stories. But I'd also missed them because I was building something. Security, stability, a future where Marcus would never have to worry about money the way I had growing up. My father left us when I was 12. No money, no trust fund, no safety net. I worked my way through college washing dishes and painting houses. Built my consulting firm one client at a time, one 16-hour day at a time. Everything I did was so Marcus wouldn't have to, and this was my thanks. But here's what I realized sitting in that Miami hotel room at 2 a.m., staring at legal documents Patricia had prepared. I had options they didn't know about. The Florida property I'd purchased in June 2024. A $4.2 million condo in Miami Beach with direct ocean views. Marcus didn't know it existed. The residency I'd quietly established. Florida driver's license. Voter registration. Homestead exemption. All completed 6 months ago. The consulting work I'd been doing remotely. 3 clients in Miami who thought I was brilliant and didn't care about my family drama. The life I'd been building while they assumed I was just a lonely old man in Portland, waiting for their next phone call. I had everything I needed to disappear completely. New city, new life, new identity. The question was whether I had the courage to actually do it. Because once I made this choice, there would be no going back. No reconciliation. No grandfather visits with future grandchildren. No family holidays or birthday calls or awkward attempts at rebuilding our relationship. Marcus would lose his inheritance. Linda would lose her access to my resources. And I would lose the last connection to the family I'd spent 30 years trying to please. But I would gain something else. Freedom. The freedom to live for myself instead of for their approval. The freedom to spend my money on people who actually wanted me around. The freedom to wake up in the morning without wondering what I'd done wrong this time. At 3:17 a.m. I made my decision. I wasn't getting on that plane. Let me take you back to that speech, because understanding what Marcus said and how he said it is crucial to understanding what happened next. The reception was in full swing, band playing jazz standards, guests mingling between the open bar and the dessert station. I was sitting at table 12, the family table, though I was the only one there. Linda and Marcus were working the room, accepting congratulations. Sarah looked radiant in her $8,000 Vera Wang dress. The flowers, those Ecuadorian orchids Marcus insisted on, were spectacular. The venue overlooked Biscayne Bay, Miami's skyline glittering in the distance. Everything was perfect, everything I'd paid for. Then the best man finished his toast, and Marcus stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention." The room quieted. 150 people turned toward the head table. "I want to thank everyone who made this day possible," Marcus began, his voice carrying easily through the sound system. "My beautiful wife Sarah, who said yes despite knowing she was marrying into a complicated family." Laughter, a few ahs from the crowd. "My mother Linda, who raised me to understand what real commitment looks like, who showed me that love means being present, not just providing." Linda dabbed her eyes. Several guests looked at me sympathetically, clearly reading between the lines. "My new in-laws, Tom and Patricia Chen, who welcomed me into their family and showed me what it looks like when parents actually support their children's dreams." Tom Chen raised his glass. More applause. Then Marcus paused, found me in the crowd, made direct eye contact. "And I want to thank my father, William Davis." A hush fell over the room. You could hear the ocean waves through the open terrace doors. "Dad, you taught me something incredibly valuable. You taught me exactly what kind of man I don't want to be." A few gasps. Someone, I think it was Sarah's cousin, whispered, "Oh my God." Marcus continued, his voice getting stronger. "You see, growing up, I watched my father choose his work over his family every single time. Miss my baseball games for client meetings. Skip my birthday dinners for business trips. Show up to my high school graduation 30 minutes late because he was closing a deal." The room was completely silent now. Even the band had stopped playing. "But you know what? I'm grateful. Because watching you taught me that showing up with a checkbook isn't the same as showing up as a father. That providing money isn't the same as providing love. That success in business means nothing if you fail at the things that actually matter." Sarah was staring at her new husband in horror. Linda was nodding approvingly. The 150 guests were looking back and forth between Marcus and me like they were watching a tennis match. "So, Dad, thank you. Thank you for showing me what not to do. Thank you for being such a clear example of how not to prioritize your family. I learned more about being a husband and father by watching your mistakes than I ever could have from a positive example." He raised his champagne glass. "Here's to learning from the past and building a better future. Here's to being present instead of just providing. Here's to everyone in this room who understands that love is a verb, not a bank account balance." The applause was scattered, uncomfortable. People weren't sure if they should clap for the honesty or cringe at the cruelty. I sat there. I sat, hands folded in my lap, face completely neutral. Marcus looked directly at me again. "Dad, I know you're proud of the success you've built, the money you've made, the deals you've closed, but I want you to know that none of that impresses me anymore. What would impress me is if you could learn to be a real father instead of just a successful stranger." More silence. Then Marcus sat down, kissed Sarah, and the band started playing again. I excused myself to the restroom, made that phone call to Patricia. When I came back, Linda was waiting by my table. "How did it feel?" she asked, practically glowing. "Hearing the truth for once?" "Educational," I replied. "Maybe now you'll finally understand what you put us through." "I understand perfectly." That night, lying in my Holiday Inn bed, I realized something important. Marcus was right about one thing. I had been absent. But what he didn't understand was that starting tomorrow, I was going to be completely absent. Forever. What Marcus and Linda didn't know was that I'd been planning my exit strategy for exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days. It started with a conversation I'd had with my accountant in Portland back in August 2022. I'd just completed the sale of my consulting firm, Davis Strategic Solutions, to a larger firm based in Chicago. The final price was $47 million, after taxes and fees. "What are you going to do now, Bill?" Jerry had asked. "You're 60. You could retire anywhere in the world." "I don't know," I'd said. "I guess I'll figure it out." But I did know. Deep down, I'd been thinking about it for years. The idea started small. What if I just didn't come back from one of my business trips? What if I found a place where nobody knew about my failed marriage or my ungrateful son? where I could start over as just Bill Davis, successful retiree, instead of Bill Davis, disappointing father. The first step was research. I'd spent decades helping companies restructure and relocate. I knew how to disappear assets, establish new operational centers, create clean breaks from unprofitable divisions. Why not apply those same principles to my personal life? Miami made sense for several reasons. No state income tax, favorable estate laws, growing business community, and 3,300 miles from Portland, far enough that casual visits would be impossible. In October 2022, I took my first scouting trip, told Marcus I was visiting a potential client, spent 5 days looking at properties, meeting with local attorneys, researching residency requirements. By November, I'd found the condo, 32nd floor of a luxury building in Miami Beach, direct ocean views, 2 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, $4.2 million, but I could pay cash. The seller was motivated, divorce situation, needed to close quickly. Perfect. I bought it in December 2022 through an LLC I'd established in Delaware. Marcus never knew it existed. The second step was legal infrastructure. Patricia Moreno came highly recommended by 3 different Florida attorneys. Harvard Law, 25 years experience in estate planning, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting her clients' interests. I want to understand my options, I'd told her during our first meeting in January 2023. If my family relationship deteriorates further, I need to know what's possible. She reviewed all my documents, the trust fund, the will, the property holdings, the investment accounts. You have more flexibility than you realize, she'd said. The moral turpitude clause in your trust agreement is ironclad. If your son abandons you or acts against your interests, you can revoke everything, completely legal. And if I wanted to change my residency? Florida has excellent privacy protections. No state income tax, very favorable asset protection laws. If you establish residency here, your Oregon assets would be much easier to liquidate and transfer. We spent 6 months preparing documents. New will, trust modifications, power of attorney arrangements, asset transfer protocols. Everything ready to execute with a single phone call. The third step was establishing my new life. I started flying to Miami once a month, always under the pretense of business development, found a great gym, joined a yacht club, started volunteering with a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs. People there knew me as Bill Davis, successful business consultant, recently semi-retired. Nobody asked about my family. Nobody knew about my failures as a father. For the first time in 30 years, I felt like myself. By June 2024, I was spending 2 weeks a month in Miami. I'd established Florida residency, driver's license, voter registration, homestead exemption on the condo. Legally, I was already a Florida resident. Marcus never noticed the pattern. Our conversations had become so infrequent that he didn't realize I was traveling more. The fourth step was emotional preparation. This was the hardest part. I had to accept that cutting ties with Marcus meant cutting ties with any future grandchildren, any possibility of reconciliation, any hope that our relationship might improve with time. But I also had to accept that our relationship wasn't improving. If anything, it was getting worse. The longer I held on, the more resentment built up on both sides. Maybe walking away was the kindest thing I could do for both of us. The night before Marcus's wedding, I made my final preparations, logged into my Portland bank accounts, reviewed the trust documents one more time, called Patricia to confirm she'd be available the next day. "Are you sure about this, Bill?" she'd asked. "Ask me tomorrow night," I'd said. Now I knew I was sure. Sunday, November 10th, 2024, 8:30 p.m., Miami International Airport. We were all supposed to be on the same flight back to Portland. American Airlines Flight 1247 departing at 10:45 p.m. Marcus had booked us all together when he thought having his father along might be useful for carrying wedding gifts and paying for excess baggage fees. I met them at the departure gate as planned, Terminal D, Gate D23. Marcus and Sarah were sitting together, scrolling through wedding photos on their phones. Linda was at the nearby Hudson News buying magazines for the flight. "Dad, perfect timing," Marcus said without looking up. "We need to talk." I sat down across from them, set my black Toomey briefcase carefully between my feet. "Sarah and I have been discussing our honeymoon plans," Marcus continued. "We're thinking about extending our trip, maybe hitting Europe for a few weeks." "That sounds wonderful," I said. "The thing is, it's going to be expensive. Hotels, flights, restaurants. You know how it is." I waited. "We were hoping you might help out." "As a wedding gift? Maybe something in the $25,000 range?" Sarah looked uncomfortable. This was clearly Marcus's idea, not hers. "I think you've received enough wedding gifts," I said quietly. Marcus looked up from his phone for the first time. "What do you mean?" "The $87,500 I spent on your wedding. That seems like a sufficient gift." "Dad, that wasn't a gift. That was you doing what a father is supposed to do." Finally, Linda returned with her magazines, immediately sensing tension. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Dad's being difficult about the honeymoon," Marcus said, acting like paying for his son's wedding was some huge favor instead of basic parental responsibility. Linda sat down next to Marcus. "Bill, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You think throwing money at situations makes you a good father?" "I never said it made me a good father," I replied. "I said it made me a father who showed up when his son needed financial support." "But not emotional support," Marcus shot back. "Never emotional support. I gave you emotional support for 30 years. You rejected it every time. Because you didn't know how to give it properly." Our voices were getting louder. Other passengers were starting to stare. Linda leaned forward. "Bill, your son just got married. This should be a happy time. Why are you making it about money?" "I'm not making it about money. You are. Marcus is. You're asking for $25,000 before we've even boarded the plane." "Because we know if we wait, you'll find some excuse to say no," Marcus said. "You'll claim it's too much, or we haven't earned it, or some other guilt trip designed to make us feel bad for asking." "Maybe you should feel bad for asking." Silence. Sarah finally spoke up. "Marcus, maybe we should just—" "No," Marcus cut her off. "This is important. Dad needs to understand that relationships aren't transactional. You can't just write checks and expect everyone to be grateful." "I don't expect gratitude," I said, "but I also don't expect to be lectured about the inadequacy of my contributions while being asked for more contributions." Linda laughed. Actually laughed. "Listen to yourself, Bill. My contributions. Like fatherhood is a business arrangement. Isn't it? From your perspective? No, it's supposed to be about love, about being present, about caring more about your child's happiness than your own convenience. I do care about Marcus's happiness. No, you care about Marcus's opinion of you. There's a difference." Now I was getting angry. Not loud angry, cold angry. "You're right, Linda. There is a difference. And after 30 years, I've learned that Marcus's opinion of me is never going to change regardless of what I do. So I'm done trying to change it." Marcus stood up. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not giving you $25,000 for your honeymoon." "Fine. We didn't really expect you to anyway." "And it means I'm not getting on that plane." Both Marcus and Linda stared at me. "What?" Linda said. "I'm not going back to Portland tonight." "Dad, what are you talking about?" Marcus asked. "Our flight leaves in 2 hours. Your flight leaves in 2 hours. I'm staying in Miami." "For how long?" "Indefinitely." Marcus looked at Sarah, then back at me. "Dad, you can't just decide to stay in Miami. You don't live here. You don't have anywhere to stay. You don't even have a return ticket if you change your mind." "Actually, I do live here. I bought a condo 6 months ago. I established Florida residency in June, and I won't be changing my mind." The color drained from Marcus's face. Linda recovered first. "You're being ridiculous, Bill. This is just another one of your dramatic gestures. You'll be calling us tomorrow, asking us to wire you money for a plane ticket home." "No, I won't." "Yes, you will, because this is what you do. You make these grand pronouncements, then you come crawling back when reality sets in." "Like when?" "Like when you threatened to cut off Marcus's college funding if he didn't major in business. You lasted exactly 3 weeks before you gave in. That was 20 years ago. People don't change, Bill, especially not people like you." An announcement came over the PA system. "American Airlines Flight 1247 to Portland, Oregon, now boarding first class and priority passengers." Marcus grabbed his carry-on bag. "Dad, this is insane. Just get on the plane. We'll figure out whatever this is when we get home." "I am home. Miami is not your home. Portland isn't my home either. Not anymore." Linda stood up, smoothing her dress. "Fine, Bill. Stay in your fantasy Miami life. See how long it lasts when you realize you can't afford it." "I can afford it." "With what money? You sold your business, but you're not exactly retirement wealthy." I almost smiled. "I'm wealthier than you think." "Prove it," Marcus said suddenly. "If you're so financially independent, prove it. Show us you can actually afford this dramatic exit." "I don't need to prove anything to you." "Because you can't. Because this is all bluff, just like always." The boarding announcement continued. "Now boarding zones 1 and 2. Linda picked up her purse. "Come on, Marcus. Let your father have his tantrum. He'll figure out reality soon enough. Marcus hesitated. Dad, last chance. Are you coming home or not? This is my home now. Fine, let's see how long you last without us. Let's see if you can actually afford a ticket back when this pathetic midlife crisis burns out. They walked away. Marcus, Sarah, and Linda, heading toward the gate. I sat there with my briefcase, watching them disappear down the jetway. At 10:45 p.m. exactly, Flight 1247 pushed back from the gate. At 10:47 p.m. I called Patricia Moreno. It's time, I said. I'll have the documents ready first thing tomorrow morning. How long will it take? To revoke the trust? 24 hours. To liquidate the Portland assets? 30 to 45 days. Do it. I hung up the phone, picked up my briefcase, walked out of Miami International Airport. I never looked back. Monday, November 11th, 2024, 9 a.m. While Marcus and Linda were landing in Portland, I was sitting in Patricia Moreno's law office on Brickell Avenue, 47th floor, signing documents that would change everything. Are you absolutely certain about this, Bill? Patricia asked one final time. Once we execute these papers, the trust revocation is irreversible. I'm certain. The first document was the trust fund revocation. One signature and Marcus lost access to $8.9 million. 30 years of careful investments gone. The second document was a new will. Marcus removed completely. The bulk of my estate now went to establish the Davis Future Leaders Fund, scholarships for first-generation college students who wanted to start their own businesses. The third document was power of attorney for Patricia to handle the liquidation of my Oregon assets, my house in Lake Oswego, my investment accounts, my remaining business interests, everything converted to cash and transferred to Florida accounts. The house should sell quickly, Patricia said. Lake Oswego market is strong. I'm estimating $1.8 million, maybe slightly more. How long? 30 days if we price it right. 45 at the outside. List it today. Today. By 11:30 a.m., my Portland house was active on the MLS. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, lake views, completely updated. Listed at $1.85 million. By noon, I was officially a Florida resident in all legal senses. Oregon driver's license surrendered. Florida voting registration confirmed. Tax domicile established. By 2 p.m., I was sitting in my Miami Beach condo, looking out at the Atlantic Ocean, completely free. Marcus didn't call that first day, or the second day, or the third day. I think he was waiting for me to call him, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, and ask for help getting home. Wednesday, November 13th, his first text arrived. Dad, this is getting ridiculous. Call me. I didn't respond. Thursday, November 14th. Dad, seriously. Mom's worried about you. Where are you staying? Friday, November 15th. Dad, I found your house listing online. What the hell is going on? That's when I knew he was starting to understand. Saturday, November 16th, my phone rang. Marcus calling. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, it's Marcus. Look, I'm sorry about the airport thing. Maybe we all said some things we didn't mean. But you can't just sell your house. That house has memories. That's where I grew up. You can't just erase that. Sunday, November 17th, Linda called. Bill, this is Linda. Marcus is beside himself. He's worried about you. We all are. This disappearing act is cruel, even for you. Call your son. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. Monday, November 18th, Marcus called again. This time I answered. Dad? Thank God. Where are you? Miami. I know you're in Miami. I mean, where specifically? What hotel? I'll fly down and we can talk about this. I'm not in a hotel. Then where? I bought a condo. Silence. What do you mean you bought a condo? I mean, I own a $4.2 million condominium in Miami Beach. I've owned it for 11 months. That's impossible. 32nd floor, direct ocean views, 2 bedrooms. I'm looking at the water right now. Dad, you don't have $4.2 million. I do. From what? Your business sale was 2 years ago. You can't still have that much money left. I have more money than you think, Marcus. How much more? Enough? Dad, this is insane. You can't just disappear. You have responsibilities. You have a life in Portland. I had a life in Portland. I have a life in Miami now. What about your house? What about it? It's where I grew up, and now it's for sale. You can't sell my childhood home. It's not your home, Marcus. It's my home, and I'm selling it. But where will I, when I visit Portland? You'll stay in a hotel. Another long silence. Dad, I don't understand what's happening here. Is this about the wedding speech? Because I was just being honest about our relationship. This isn't about the wedding speech. Then what? This is about me finally accepting that our relationship is exactly what you said it was. Disappointing. Failed. Not worth preserving. That's not what I meant. Yes, it was. And you were right. I was a terrible father. Absent. Selfish. Focused on work instead of family. Dad, so I'm fixing it. I'm being completely absent now. Permanently. That's not what I wanted. What did you want, Marcus? I wanted you to try harder. I wanted you to fight for our relationship. I fought for our relationship for 30 years. You spent 30 years telling me I was losing. But I didn't want you to give up. Then you shouldn't have abandoned me at an airport. Click. I turned off my phone. Tuesday, November 19th, I received an email from a Portland realtor. 3 offers on my house, all above asking price. The highest was $1.92 million cash, 30-day close. I accepted it. Wednesday, November 20th, I started volunteering at a Miami mentorship program for young entrepreneurs. 20 hours a week helping kids who actually wanted my advice build their first businesses. Thursday, November 21st, I joined the board of directors for a Miami-based scholarship fund. My first donation, $500,000. Friday, November 22nd, I had dinner with 3 other board members and their wives. Normal conversation. No one mentioned absent sons or failed marriages. We talked about business, travel plans, the upcoming holidays. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in 30 years. Saturday, November 23rd, my Portland house closed escrow early. $1.92 million deposited into my Florida accounts. Sunday, November 24th, I drafted a letter. Monday, November 25th, I mailed it. The letter reached Marcus on Tuesday, November 26th. I know because he called 17 times that day. I didn't answer. But I listened to his voicemails. The first one was angry. Dad, what the hell is this letter supposed to mean? The second one was confused. Dad, you can't be serious about this. The third one was desperate. Dad, please call me back. We need to talk. The fourth one was panicked. Dad, I looked up that trust fund thing. You can't just take my inheritance away. There have to be laws against this. The fifth one was Linda. Bill, you bastard. How dare you punish Marcus for telling the truth about what kind of father you were? The sixth one was Sarah. Mr. Davis, this is Sarah. Marcus he's not handling this well. Could you please just call him back? The 17th voicemail was Marcus crying. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean those things I said. I was angry about a lot of stuff that wasn't even your fault. Please don't do this. Please don't disappear. I need you. I deleted all 17 messages. Then I changed my phone number. December 1st, 2024. Marcus received a certified letter from Patricia Moreno's law firm. I wasn't there, obviously, but Patricia told me exactly what happened next. Marcus called her office immediately. I need to speak with Patricia Moreno immediately, he told the receptionist. This is about my father's trust fund. Miss Moreno is in court today. I can schedule an appointment for next week. Next week? This can't wait until next week. Your letter says my trust fund has been revoked. That's $8.9 million. You can't just take someone's inheritance away. Sir, I'll need to have Miss Moreno call you back. When? This afternoon, if possible. Patricia called him at 4:30 p.m. Mr. Davis, I understand you have questions about the trust fund modification. Modification? You dissolved it completely. That's correct. How is that legal? Your father established the Davis Family Trust in 1995 with very specific provisions. Section 7.3 includes what's called a moral turpitude clause. It allows the grantor, your father, to revoke the trust if the beneficiary, you, commits certain acts. What acts? What did I supposedly do? Willful abandonment of the grantor. I didn't abandon him. He chose to stay in Miami. After you and your mother left him at Miami International Airport without a return ticket, telling him to see if he could afford a ticket back. That constitutes abandonment under Florida law. But he could afford a ticket back. He's not poor. The issue isn't whether he could afford it. The issue is that you attempted to strand him there as punishment. That triggers the abandonment clause. This is insane. You can't take away someone's inheritance because of one argument. Mr. Davis, this wasn't one argument. According to your father, this was the culmination of a 30-year pattern of financial demands combined with emotional rejection. I never rejected him. Your wedding speech suggests otherwise. Silence. He recorded my wedding speech. He didn't need to record it. 53 witnesses heard you publicly state that your father taught you exactly what kind of man not to be, and that you learned more about being a husband by watching his mistakes than you could have from a positive example. I was emotional. It was my wedding day. Emotional honesty, according to your father. He's simply accepting your assessment and acting accordingly. By stealing my inheritance? By redirecting his assets toward people who actually want his support, the $8.9 million is now funding the Davis Future Leaders Fund, providing business scholarships for first-generation college students. He can't do this. He already has done it. The paperwork was filed November 11th. It's completely legal and absolutely final. Marcus hung up. Then he called every lawyer in Portland. The first 3 wouldn't take the case. Trust fund revocations are very difficult to challenge, they explained, especially when there's a clear abandonment clause and documented pattern of beneficiary hostility. The 4th lawyer, David Chen, no relation to Sarah's family, agreed to review the documents. 2 days later, Chen called Marcus back. "I've reviewed your father's trust agreement and the revocation paperwork. I'm afraid there's no viable challenge here." "What do you mean?" "The moral turpitude clause is ironclad. It was clearly written by an excellent attorney, probably with exactly this scenario in mind. Your father had the absolute legal right to revoke the trust, and he followed all proper procedures." "But I'm his son." "Being someone's child doesn't give you a legal right to their money, Mr. Davis. Trust funds are gifts, not entitlements. Your father can change his mind about gifts." "What about the house? He sold my childhood home without even telling me. It was his house. He could sell it to anyone he wanted. What about his will? Can he cut me out of that too?" "Absolutely. Florida law allows complete testamentary freedom. Parents can disinherit their children for any reason or no reason at all." "So there's nothing I can do?" "You could try to reconcile with your father. He won't take my calls. Then I'm afraid you're out of options." Marcus hired a private investigator to find my Miami address. The PI tracked me down in 3 days. My condo building, my gym, my volunteer work, even the restaurants where I regularly ate dinner. Marcus flew to Miami on December 10th. He waited for me in the lobby of my building. "Dad?" I just returned from the gym. 62 years old, but in the best shape of my life. Daily swimming, weight training, yoga classes. Miami had been good for my health. Marcus: "We need to talk." "No, we don't." "Dad, please, just 5 minutes." "You have 2 minutes, here in the lobby." He looked terrible. 30 pounds heavier than at his wedding, dark circles under his eyes, rumpled clothes like he'd slept in them. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about everything. The speech, the airport, all of it. I was wrong." "You weren't wrong. You were honest." "I was cruel." "Same thing in this case." "Dad, you can't just cut me off completely. I'm your son. You're my biological offspring. Whether you're my son depends on how we treat each other. Then let me be your son again." "Let me make this right." "How?" "I don't know. Tell me what you want me to do. I want you to leave me alone. Dad, time's up." I walked past him toward the elevator. "Dad, wait. What about the trust fund? What about it? Is there any way to what? To restore it?" I turned around, looked at him for a long moment. "Marcus, do you know what those scholarship kids say when they receive their Davis Future Leaders Fund awards?" "No." "Thank you. They say thank you. They write thank you notes. They send pictures of their graduation ceremonies. They invite me to their business launch parties." I said thank you. "When?" At my wedding reception." "No, you didn't. You spent your wedding reception explaining how disappointed you were in me as a father." "But I thanked you for the wedding." "No, you told me that paying for your wedding was basic parental responsibility and not worth gratitude." "Dad, I was wrong about that." "Yes, you were. But more importantly, you were honest about how you really felt. My feelings have changed." "Because you lost $8.9 million, not because you gained respect for me." "That's not true." "Prove it." "How?" "Build a relationship with me that has nothing to do with money. No inheritance expectations, no financial support, no emergency loans, just a father and son who enjoy each other's company." "Okay, yes, I want that." "Good. Start by getting your own life together. Find a career you're passionate about. Build financial independence. Create something you're proud of. Then will you reconsider the trust fund? You're already thinking about the money, Marcus. We could really use that financial security." "There's your answer." I got in the elevator. "Dad, wait. Please." The doors closed. That was the last time I saw my son. 6 months later, my new life in Miami was everything I'd hoped it would be. The Davis Future Leaders Fund had awarded its first round of scholarships, 12 recipients, each getting $50,000 toward their business education, plus ongoing mentorship support. I'd met with each scholarship winner personally. Kids like Maria Santos, whose parents immigrated from El Salvador and who wanted to start a food truck business. Like David Kim, first in his family to attend college, planning to launch a tech startup focused on elder care. These kids reminded me why I'd loved business in the first place. The problem solving, the creative thinking, the satisfaction of building something from nothing. They also said thank you, constantly. Maria sent me photos of her business plan presentation. David invited me to his graduation ceremony. When I showed up, he introduced me to his parents as the man who made this possible. Mr. Davis believed in me when nobody else would, he told them. I couldn't remember the last time Marcus had said anything like that about me. My volunteer work had expanded too. I was now mentoring 6 young entrepreneurs through the Miami Business Development Center, teaching financial planning seminars for new immigrants, serving on the board of 2 different scholarship funds. At 62, I was busier than I'd been in Portland, but it felt different, purposeful instead of obligatory. I'd also developed a social life, real friendships with people who knew nothing about my family drama and didn't care about my past mistakes. There was Robert Martinez, a retired surgeon who lived 3 floors down. We played tennis twice a week and had dinner every Friday at the yacht club. There was Elena Vasquez, who ran a nonprofit focused on microfinance for women entrepreneurs. We'd started dating casually, nothing serious, just companionship and conversation with someone who shared my interests. There was the book club I'd joined, the photography class I was taking, the sailing lessons that had become a weekend hobby. For the first time in 30 years, I wasn't waiting for someone else's approval to live my life. But Marcus wasn't giving up. He'd called my old number 247 times before figuring out I'd changed it. Then he'd somehow gotten my new number and started the cycle again. He'd sent letters to my Miami address, long, rambling apologies mixed with financial desperation. "Dad, Sarah and I are struggling," read one. "Without the trust fund as backup, we can't qualify for the mortgage we wanted. We're stuck in this tiny apartment, and it's putting strain on our marriage." "Dad, I've been thinking about what you said," read another. "About building something I'm proud of. I have some business ideas, but I need startup capital. Maybe we could structure it as a loan instead of a gift." Every letter eventually circled back to money. He'd also tried going through intermediaries. Sarah called my old Portland friends asking if they knew how to reach me. Linda somehow tracked down Patricia Moreno's number and left increasingly desperate voicemails. "Bill needs to understand that he's destroying his relationship with his son over money," Linda had said in one message Patricia played for me. "This is exactly the kind of controlling, manipulative behavior that ruined our marriage." The irony was stunning. She was calling me controlling and manipulative for refusing to give Marcus money he hadn't earned and didn't deserve. But the most revealing attempt came in March 2025. Marcus had somehow discovered my volunteer work with the Miami Business Development Center. He showed up at one of my financial planning seminars. I was in the middle of explaining debt-to-income ratios to a room full of hopeful entrepreneurs when I saw him in the back row. He waited until after the seminar, then approached me as I was packing up my materials. "Dad, that was a great presentation." "Thank you." I was thinking, maybe I could attend these regularly? Learn about business finance? These seminars are for people starting their first businesses. I am starting a business. Photography. Remember my old photography phase? I'm reviving it. What kind of photography business? Wedding photography. Event photography. Portrait work. How much startup capital do you need? That's the thing. I was hoping we could discuss how much, Marcus? Maybe $75,000 for equipment, marketing, a studio space. No. Dad, you didn't even hear my business plan. I don't need to hear your business plan. You're not here to start a business. You're here to manipulate me into giving you money. That's not true. Then start your photography business without my money. Bootstrap it like every other entrepreneur in this room did. But you're my father, and these are my mentees, I said, gesturing toward the young entrepreneurs who were still networking in the room. The difference is they respect me enough not to lie about their motivations. I'm not lying. You told me your photography business lasted 6 months when you tried it in 2019. You sold all the equipment I'd bought you and used the money for a vacation to Europe. That was different. I'm more mature now. Prove it. Build a successful business without my help. Then we'll talk. Dad, please, I'm drowning here. The wedding debt, the apartment rent, Sarah's student loans. I need help. You need to help yourself. I can't do it alone. Yes, you can. You just don't want to. I finished packing my briefcase and headed for the exit. Marcus followed me into the parking lot. Dad, what if I do it? What if I actually build a successful business without your money? Would you consider... Would there be a chance? A chance for what? For us. For our relationship. Our relationship doesn't depend on your business success, Marcus. Then what does it depend on? Mutual respect. Honest communication. Spending time together because we enjoy each other's company, not because one of us wants something from the other. I do want that. Then stop asking me for money and start asking me how I'm doing. I got in my car and drove away. That was 4 months ago. Marcus hasn't contacted me since. The letter I'd sent Marcus on November 25th, 2024, the one that triggered his 17 panicked voicemails, was exactly 43 words long. Marcus, you said I was never there. I'm making it official. You're free from your disappointing father. I'm free from your disappointment. This arrangement benefits both of us. Best wishes for your future. William Davis. Short, clean, final. But I want to read you the letter I didn't send. The one I wrote 3 different times and deleted 3 different times before settling on those 43 words. Because the letter I didn't send would have explained everything. It would have told Marcus about the nights I lay awake wondering what I'd done wrong as a father, about the business trips I cut short to make it to his soccer games, only to find he'd quit the team without telling me, about the college fund I started when he was 3 years old, adding money every month even when times were tight. It would have told him about the pride I felt when he graduated high school, how I kept his diploma photo on my office desk for 10 years, about the business advice I'd practiced in my head, waiting for him to ask for my guidance on something that mattered. It would have told him about the conversations I'd imagined us having when he got older. Father-son talks about life, relationships, career decisions, the kind of conversations my own father never had with me because he left when I was 12. But I didn't send that letter, because explaining yourself to someone who doesn't want to understand you is just another form of begging. And I was done begging for my son's approval. The 43-word letter was better. It said everything that needed saying without saying too much. It established boundaries. It clarified expectations. It removed ambiguity. Most importantly, it gave both of us permission to move on. Today is July 15th, 2025. 8 months since I left Portland. 7 months since I cut Marcus out of my will. 4 months since his last desperate attempt to reconcile. My life in Miami has become everything I never knew I wanted. This morning I had breakfast with Elena at a cafe overlooking Biscayne Bay. We talked about her nonprofit's new microfinance program and my photography class final project. This afternoon I'm meeting with 3 Davis Future Leaders Fund Scholarship recipients who are launching their first business together, a sustainable packaging company. They want my advice on investor presentations. Tonight I'm having dinner with Robert and his daughter, who's visiting from New York. She's a successful attorney, and she clearly adores her father. Watching them together doesn't make me sad anymore. It makes me hopeful that healthy parent-child relationships are possible, even if mine wasn't. This weekend I'm flying to Atlanta to attend David Kim's wedding. Remember David? The scholarship kid whose elder care startup just received Series A funding. He specifically asked me to walk his mother down the aisle because his father died when David was 15. You believed in me when I was just an idea, David told me. Now I want you to see what that belief helped create. These are the relationships I have now, based on mutual respect instead of biological obligation, founded on gratitude instead of entitlement, built through earned trust instead of expected inheritance. I don't know if Marcus will ever figure out how to have relationships like this. I hope he does, for his sake and Sarah's, but that's not my responsibility anymore. My responsibility is to the life I'm building here, to the young entrepreneurs who call me for advice and actually listen to what I say, to the scholarship fund that's already changing lives, to the friendships I've developed with people who choose to spend time with me, to the version of myself I never got to be when I was busy trying to earn love from people who weren't capable of giving it. Sometimes people ask me if I miss Portland, if I miss my old life. I miss the idea of having a close relationship with my son, but I don't miss the reality of our relationship, which was me giving everything and him taking everything while telling me it wasn't enough. I miss the house where Marcus grew up, but I don't miss the house where I spent 30 years feeling like a failure. I miss the hope that someday things would get better between us. But I don't miss the constant disappointment when they didn't. What I don't miss at all is waiting for someone else's permission to be happy. Marcus taught me that love is a verb, not a bank account balance. He was right about that. The love I have now, from Elena, from Robert, from my scholarship kids, from my volunteer work, is active love. Present love. Love that shows up and says thank you and means it. That's the kind of love I should have been looking for all along. If you're watching this and you're dealing with a family member who takes your generosity for granted while criticizing your character, I want you to know something. You don't have to keep accepting that treatment. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. And sometimes the best revenge is simply living well without them. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and whether you think I made the right choice. My name is William Davis, and this is how I learned that freedom and love aren't opposites. They're the same thing.